This video tutorial is an introduction to the Nikon D3500 cameras. Some of the cameras in this class are D3200s and the interface is slightly different, but these are the newest ones, and most likely when I'm buying new ones, I'm going to be buying more of these, so it's good to know about them. So first thing you need to know is the battery. So you slide this little compartment open here, then there's this lever, and it's spring-loaded, so it pops the battery out like that. And you always want to make sure that it's charged. This little slide out is where the memory card is. These are also spring-loaded, so you push them and then they pop out. The memory card comes out like this, and you want to make sure that you don't touch this gold part, because that's where the memory and all the data gets stored. And then you want to make sure that this little lever, this white lever, is up, because sometimes if it gets pushed down, it'll say it's locked. And when you put the memory card in, you want the image to be facing up towards you. And then you push it in and you slide it closed. Okay, so the on-off button is here. You toggle it on and off. Really important that you turn it off before you put it away in the bag. You've got the mode style here, all these different settings for nighttime, macro, sports shooting, portraits, no flash. These all have, different purposes and will do different things for you. Most beginners are going to put it on auto, but for us, the first thing we're going to do is put it on A mode, which is aperture priority mode. M mode is manual, where you have to tell the camera the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. You dial in all the settings, but that's really an advanced setting. For aperture priority, what you do is you tell the camera what aperture you want it, and then the camera does all the other work for you. It sets the shutter and the ISO to get a good exposure for you. So you're just controlling one aspect of it, and then the camera does all the other hard work. So if you push the I button, and it's going to tell you, before taking photos, rotate the zoom ring to extend the lens. Okay, so this is the little button. You have to push it and turn it to extend the lens. Okay, and change the focal length. So you have a 55 to 18 focal length lens. And then in order to retract it and lock it, you have to push the button again and retract it in, and then it gets locked, okay? But in order to take pictures, you have to unlock it. The lens cap is spring-loaded also, so you squeeze these little bits and then they come off, and then you squeeze them and then it goes back on. This lens is pretty dirty. We'll be paying attention to that, making sure that we clean them periodically. Best way to keep them clean, though, is to keep the lens cap on. So we've extended the zoom ring, or the ring for the camera. So it's been extended. And what you're going to see here is that you've got shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So the three things that you need to pay attention to. But for us, in aperture priority, we're just going to pay attention to the aperture. So this little slider right here, if I go left, it opens the aperture, right? And if I go right, and you can see it happening in real time, see how it's closing down? So if I go to the right, the aperture gets small. If I go to the left, the aperture gets wide open. For portraiture, we're wanting a wide open aperture because we want shallow depth of field. That's what a wide open aperture, that's the effect that you'll get. The opening of the aperture is dependent on the focal length. So if I'm at 55 focal length and I try to open the aperture, you'll see that it only opens to 5.6. But if I am at 18 focal length, which is closer, so 55 is going to be, the focal point is going to be farther away. At 18, it's going to be closer. At 18, I can actually open the aperture to 3.5. So that's going to give me shallower depth of field because I'm closer to the object. Okay, and you can see that the camera is choosing. It's metering the light. It's telling me this is what the shutter and the sensitivity, the ISO, has to be in order to properly expose my image. Okay, there's all these settings down in here and all kinds of settings in the menu, but I'm not going to get to that quite yet. So what you need to know is that when you're ready to take your photo, this is one of the most important things. You're going to half press the shutter, and the camera, let's see, let's put it on live view. So the camera has this little red box right here. That's your focus point. And when I half press the shutter, you'll see that it goes green. That's telling me that the camera has had time to meter the light and make all the calculations that it needs to have in order to have a focused image. So notice how when I put it on that piece of paper, right, it everything else is out of focus and that paper is in focus. Okay, let's try something else. I'm gonna see if I can. Now it's focused on that piece of paper. So you can see that the camera, I had that green box, and then the playback button is here, so I can look at my photo. The camera was focused on here, and because I have a shallow depth of field, this was too close, so it's out of focus. This stuff is all out of focus because it was too far away. I have a very shallow sliver of focus. Okay, and that's what I want. And when you're taking a portrait, this would be the person's face, and then it's gonna blur out the background, which is the effect that we want. So the critical thing though, is that you have to half press, wait till this goes green, and then press it all the way. And I didn't correspond with it being green, but if you press the shutter when this is red, then you may get an out of focus image. The live button, this little toggle right here, so if I toggle this, I have to look through the viewfinder in order to actually see what I'm shooting. But if you want to, you can put it into live view and then you can see on the screen here, and then you can toggle back. Okay, so that's the basic functions of this camera, and I'll get into these settings and the menu in a different tutorial.